All right, man. Well, let's just jump right into it. I'm a little rusty, actually. I haven't done a podcast in a little bit. So, kicking off 2024, Brent Whalen from Osprey Home Inspections.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining. Yeah, that's great. I've been looking forward to this. And it's kind of one of those things, people, just to let people know, we kind of had our first interaction on TikTok. So,
Yeah.
it's been kind of a unique experience, especially for me, because I was never a big social media guy. So early on in real estate, a lot of my buddies that have been in it for a while were like, "Oh, you're not doing enough marketing, you're not doing enough that." And then I kind of doubled down about this time last year, started doing some like small format reels like yourself, and it's kind of cool, the little communities that are content creators or social media folks, and that's kind of what brought us together. And then you showed up at one of my open houses, which was super cool. And then we actually made the connection, and then we've kind of been working together since. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. How did you get kind of motivated to start doing some reels and stuff? I know we chatted a bit at my Christmas party.
Yeah, I mean, it all started with wanting to get ahead of marketing and trying to get people kind of my age, our age, who are, just starting their home ownership journey. I try to be like ahead of the curve if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I don't know, videography and, making stupid little videos on YouTube or whatever. That's I kind of have experience with that. And it was kind of easy to transfer over to like editing small format videos like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Do you do a lot of your own? You got a YouTube page as well?
I do, but I'm not nearly as active as I am on TikTok.
Yeah.
Instagram and whatnot.
100%. Yeah. It's tough to build.
It is.
It's tough to build. Even for me, like I've done 25 episodes and I got like 70 subscribers. But mine's very niche specific. If you're not in Halifax, maybe you're not interested, because most of my guests, for the most part, maybe one wasn't really directly related to like something in Halifax, but I thought it was cool anyway, so I put it out there. So if you're not a Haligonian or somebody looking to move here or looking for businesses or things to do or cool people to kind of look into, then maybe my channel's not for you. But it's a slow grind. Like if you listen to anybody that's made it or whatever that looks like.
No, slow but steady,
Yeah. But you used to do a little bit of videos and stuff beforehand?
Yeah, and in fact, if you look hard enough, you might be able to find some videos. I urge you not to, because they're cringy.
Oh, yeah?
But yeah, I mean...
Those are the best ones.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to start doing TikToks to kind of educate the general public on what to look for, when buying a home, because... I mean, you never know what I might find something at the home inspection, but that's not a be all end all of the home. You're really gonna find out how the home works, like living in it. And so like I try to make content so that people kind of wake up and pay attention to the things that are going around their home.
Yeah, and I find like especially like watching your content, like I'd be like, if I was gonna sell this home, I know there's a bunch of stuff that maybe is not wrong, but I should probably get fixed.
And there's always something wrong. Well, maybe not like you said, maybe not wrong, but there's always something with every home. Right.
It doesn't matter.
I mean, and people get kind of a little shocked when they see my reports and they have like 30 or 40 items that he's fixing. My home, if I went around, I'm sure you could find 60 items that need repair easily.
Do you find people really get kind of like, it's very daunting for them to get that report and be like, oh my God, 40 items. Like, we can't buy this house.
You know what? Some people have, but then you look at it and you really look at the items that are on it, and it might be like a faucet that might be a little loose. You could tighten up a faucet in 3 minutes.
Right. So it's like not like some people think there's 40 things that are all major.
Yeah. No, I'm not finding 40 cracks in your foundation. Right. So
yeah, very seldom anyway.
Yeah.
It'd be a mess.
There have been some houses.
Yeah, I bet you see all kinds of stuff. So let's kind of just roll out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about? We kind of were talking a little bit about it before we kind of got rolling here. Like, where you're from originally. How'd you end up in? I think you're in Eastern Passage now.
Yeah, beautiful Eastern Passage.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's beautiful if you can stand the wind long enough to keep your eyes open and look at it.
Right, but same as Newfoundland.
Yeah, same as Newfoundland. Yeah, lots of wind, lots of water, lots of challenges when it comes to the ocean being so close to your home.
Yeah, 100%. I grew up on the ocean as well.
Yeah,
but where in Newfoundland you from?
I am from the Northern Peninsula, way up near St. Anthony, Roddickton. And,
you're way up there.
Yeah, and normally I list off a couple of places nearby because, like, if I say I'm from Conch, people are going to say, okay, yeah, that's great.
Right.
I moved here when I was 13 with the Fam Jam.
What brought you here?
Just lack of work, really.
Lack of work.
Yeah, my father, he moved over here when I was probably 9 or 10.
Before you did.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, this is how dirt poor we were. He actually had to move over here and send us money back, and for us to be able to all join together.
Yeah.
And come over here.
Yeah, I mean it still happens, man. People work out west, send money back home. Maybe it's fly in, fly out. I mean, you see it in a lot of countries, man. A lot of different places. People got to do what they got to do. So
yeah, and I've actually done that myself. Like I had to leave to do fly in, fly out work up in Alberta and leave my young family here for.
Yeah.
I believe it was just under a year. But yeah, that was tough. I don't know how my father did that for years.
Because he had to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
You got a couple kids too, don't you?
Yeah, I got 3 kids.
Well, how old?
10, 8, and just over a year and a half.
Okay.
And
New.
And I promise they're all planned. And
yeah, that's what you tell them, right?
And love them to death. And funny enough, that's kind of what got me into looking into opening up a business, because it was actually during COVID, and all the schools closed down. I became a stay-at-home dad / I want to be careful how I say this, because I'm definitely not a teacher whatsoever.
Right.
My heart goes out to all you teachers out there.
100%.
And it's incredible. And like just dealing with my own kids was tough enough. I could only imagine, a room full of 30 strangers that aren't your kids.
Yeah, that'll probably tell you.
Yeah. So yeah, I saw that happen. I was suddenly out of a job. Thank goodness for CERB. They want that money back, but anyway, if it wasn't for that, then I don't know what would happen.
Yeah, man, it's been a tough couple of years for a few people, and we continue to experience some hardships with inflation and all that as well. So let's go back a little bit before COVID. You were still are a Red Seal carpenter. Mm-hmm. So kind of how many years did you do that? Kind of did you get into that right after kind of high school? How did you kind of end up?
Yeah, well, I started at NSCC, did the 2-year program, which, by the way, they give you the very basics, but you really learn on the job.
Yeah.
And then I went into doing framing. I did that for a year or two. Got sick of the cold, so I moved over to emergency restoration.
Right.
Which, if you're unfamiliar, if your basement has a flood, I would be the guy that would come in and fix it, basically.
Okay.
And that gave me a really good opportunity to see what can happen to a home when you neglect it and let maintenance go, which happens to be the biggest issues I find when I do home inspections is, lack of maintenance.
Right.
So yeah, I started doing that. That was great. Got lots of experience. I learned the ins and outs of insurance, which, for better or worse, and from then on, I decided I was going to be a home inspector.
Right. So COVID kind of really kicked that off, where that was no longer, a thing, like your job. You kind of suffered, unfortunately, a job loss. I did as well, which pushed me to kind of pursue my ultimate interest early on as a young 20-year-old that thought he knew everything, but definitely didn't.
Yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah, right. It's funny how you kind of realize, like, your parents were right.
It's a tough pill to swallow, man.
I know, yeah. It's just through life on the more time on the planet, right? You kind of start to realize the nuances of, being an adult and how things really work. But no, that's super cool. So just jumping back, like, do you find like you said, like most issues in home inspections really come from lack of upkeep and, not to speak, personally from any groups of like my friends, but like, some houses that I've shown and brought clients into, you can definitely tell that there's some people that have pride of ownership, lawn's good, the inside's tidy, everything's kind of, roof doesn't have peeled up shingles, there's no rotting wooden window frames. Like, I find there's those people, and then there's the other people that just buy it and live in it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And they just stuff it full of stuff, and it just kind of just slowly over time kind of deteriorates bit by bit by bit by bit.
Yeah, for sure. And that was, unfortunately, that was most of the clientele when I was working in emergency restoration. Like you'd go in and you'd just find all kinds of things that I probably shouldn't share online. But yeah. And really, it's just, it may not even be their fault. I mean, you only know what you know.
Right.
And, not everybody knows that. Yeah, I mean, just the importance of like keeping the outside clear of snow, for example. And yeah.
Yeah, man. So what would you say would be your biggest like value takeaways from like your time as like the restoration guy to now the inspector, check your nest guy?
Well, I mean, a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times. Sometimes I'll go to a home inspection and I'll see that the roof pitch is not quite what it should be. I will right then and there recommend that they put heat tape, for example, up on the eaves of their home. And the heat tape, that's just to melt away. That's just to give like a channel for the water to escape,
right?
Rather than it freeze up and create an ice dam.
Right.
That's just one example. Things like that. A lot of people, I found that they would have like a crack in their foundation and they would have no idea until I showed up. And really, it's just a matter of walking around the perimeter of your home and, searching for any cracks.
So you find like people really aren't even taking a close eye at all on
the
place at all. They're just like, it's like a total surprise when you get there.
Yeah.
It's in the report, eh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's something that's my goal, to change people's mindsets about how they look at their home. Because, for example, you're driving your car and a light flashes up on your dash. It tells you right away. You take it to a mechanic, right?
Some people don't.
Some people don't. No, a lot of people don't.
Right.
But, you don't got a dash light for your house.
No.
Right? So it's all about just, making people aware. And, they could decide for themselves if they can live with it, if it's worth fixing. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think one of the properties we did down in Sambro, the pitch was a little off, and you recommended some heat tape there. It's the one with the red tin roof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one thing I think people don't realize too is like, ice damming isn't always covered under your insurance. Like that's like an extra
and
add-on with some. I don't know. I can only speak for my insurance company.
Right. Well, it depends on your policy. But for example, if your water tank blows, the insurance company, they'll fix the damage caused by it, but it's really up to you to get a plumber in there
to do the tank,
to get the tank fixed or replaced.
Yeah, we had an odd situation, that big rainstorm before last Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I was doing. I maybe showing houses or out and about with clients somewhere. Anyway, I wasn't home, and I was on the way, and it was just coming down, cats and dogs.
Mm-hmm.
My wife calls me, like, hey, what's going on? She's like, and I was like, crap, this isn't good. She's like, there's water dripping out of the bathroom ceiling fan. And I go, what? She goes, yeah, it's not like bad, but it's like, it's not good.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll be right there. And you know what? I can definitely call myself like one of those people, I guess, like, you know, definitely always looking around the outside and the inside and kind of very aware of like the stuff you see day to day. But how many times I've been in my attic?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you see it all the time too as a, real estate agent.
Yeah.
You see so many houses that are in various different conditions.
100%.
That, it kind of makes something pop in your head. Maybe I should check that when I get home,
100%. But in this instance, I go in the back bedroom here, right up above us, and the attic hatch is in the little closet.
Mm-hmm.
I pop my excuse my language, but I pop my head up there, and it's just a disaster. It's soaking wet.
Oh, no.
It's like, just like it's leaking. I get up on that roof, and I have that like plastic cement. I'm just pounding it in anything I can put it in. And like all around the stink pipe, like the what's the proper name for that?
Yeah, you call it stink pipe.
Yeah.
Stack.
Plumbing stack.
Yeah,
that's the right one.
Yeah,
I was doing that because I think the gasket of the seal around that was gone. Which, how would I know? I'm not on my roof. I'm terrified of heights. But anyway, I was up there, pouring rain. Just like, luckily I have all the rain gear and stuff from like hunting and all the outdoor stuff I do, but. I think I went through like 6 tubes of that stuff. Like the poor guys that redid my roof last spring probably were like, what happened up here? So anything lifted, I did. Luckily, I stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, got the guys in, called the insurance, and they send like on-site restoration or first on-site or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, there was like, I don't know, not to badmouth the company, but the people they got working for them, I don't think are as knowledgeable as what they say.
Right.
So one guy was like, oh, yeah, whatever. It looks like it's not a ventilation problem. Next guy comes in, he's like, yeah, no, it's a huge ventilation problem. You only got gables. You got no ridge venting.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially what was happening, and the bathroom fan hose, they just slung it up there. It wasn't like out through the soffit. And basically what was happening is every time we'd shower upstairs, all the heat and moisture
just pumping right into the attic?
Right into the attic, and it would just stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Even to the point like some of the gussets like popped off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the main part of the story. They did their assessment, sent to the assurance, and my buddy was a contractor. He come down and looked. He's like, oh yeah, man, you gotta do all the sheathing, shingles. There's this. You should look at that and get it reinforced and all that. Nothing major, but just like reattach the gussets. And so there's like 1 or 2 that popped off, probably from the moisture and the heat, just like twisting.
Mm-hmm.
And the insurance company they were like, yeah, we'll cover the shingles.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but guys, like the roof sheeting is also a problem. And if the shingles were the problem that caused the roof sheeting to fail, then wouldn't that all be encompassed in the main problem, which is the entirety of the roof? And they're like, yeah, no, we're just covering the shingles. And then they're like, okay, we'll give you this payout. And that was like a $12,000 number. And then all of a sudden I was like, cool. After I had that experience with the restoration company, I didn't have much faith in those guys because it didn't seem like they knew what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, cool, just cut me the check. I got my own guy that'll do it in the spring. And then all of a sudden my $12,000 payout was down to $9,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, guys, what's happening here? You said one number, now it's this. And this was like, it took forever to get the policy done and paid out. But I don't know if the insurance guys or the assessors or the company that was going to do the work like kind of juiced it up, and then when they knew they weren't going to do the work, they were like, oh, actually it's more like this number.
Well, the insurance companies, they'll pay out 60% of your whatever the first on-site guys or on-site guys, or there's a bunch of restoration companies around Halifax. But they'll pay out 60% of whatever that contractor said it would cost.
Okay, so that's what's going on there. They weren't very forthcoming with that information.
Yeah, and I mean, insurance is very greasy. And after after having that experience, it did leave a very sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to get out of that world like as much as possible.
And is that one of the major things that kind of pushed you out? Like you were seeing kind of some stuff not being done to standard, or maybe like not being so honest about,
One,
not to throw anybody under the bus.
no, of course not. One little joke that we would have is, every client is equal. Just some people are more equal than others.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh man, that is something. So, what would be some of the pros and cons that you've kind of seen? Being a new business owner yourself, working as an inspector. What have you seen out there? What's kind of some of the good, some of the bads? Like if somebody was looking to get into kind of this industry.
Well, I'll tell you this. I left my 9-to-5 job to start a 24/7 job. So
People think they're going to get all this time and flexibility. And
yeah. And eventually it does come, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But you really got to grind and put in the hard work. And I'm seriously not even there yet. I'm still grinding hard every day.
Same.
Trying to get up to that level. But I mean the life experience you get just from running any business really, it's just so invaluable that I don't know. I kind of wish I started it sooner. But at the same time, like life comes at you when it comes at you.
Yeah, 100%, man. I say it all the time. I wish I would have started in real estate when I wanted to in university and didn't get scared away by this old fella, Francis McDonald, I think his actual name is. He's the broker for Press Realty, or at least he's working for them. Anyway, he's my old roommate, my buddy Sean's girlfriend at the time was her father. It's just like, oh man, it's a grind, evenings and weekends, and like it's commission. There's no salary. There's no, benefits. There's no pension. And it's just terrifying.
It sounds like he's like almost trying to scare you away, but at the same time, you need someone to kind of give you a dose of reality, like.
Yeah, and 20-year-old Chris like didn't have a lot of those doses for sure. Like I wanted to party with my friends. I need money for rent. And like working evenings and weekends, just like it was against the grain of like what my grandfather, my dad's dad, and dad sold me. And I'm sure maybe similar to when you were young. It was like, oh, you got to go to university. You got to get a job with a salary and a pension and benefits. Like working for yourself. Like although they did it their entire life and did, Grant lived very comfortable, like modest house. Like they weren't flashy people, but if they wanted to go on a trip, they went on a trip. They had a cottage, they did what they wanted. They seemed real happy. But for us, it was like, no, you don't want to work with your hands. You got to go get a university education. Like that's the trajectory. And like as a young kid, I'm like, well, they know best, so that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I mean, speaking as a parent though, you do want better for your kids.
Of course.
And
the struggle and the grind that it took.
Yeah, and like my father, he was a logger, like a lumberjack basically for like his whole life.
Paul Bunyan.
Yeah.
Remember that movie?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, he had to work hard just to put food on the table. And same with my mother, and back in Newfoundland where we lived, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity. So, I mean, reach for the stars basically is what they would say.
Yeah. Hey.
Not that they, they didn't really push university because they're kind of, down to earth with, reality. And, I'm not destined for university.
Right.
Not that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, there's lots of people out there now who are choosing not to go to university and, making perfectly decent livelihoods, just working. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Man, yeah, you know what's been cool? My buddy Noah James Media, that does like some of my listing stuff, and he originally, when he first started his business, like he was helping me with this podcast because I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just like, hey, he approached me at the Apartment 3 Cafe just on Sackville Drive because he's doing a bit of work for them, and he had first kind of, he'd say, hey, I'm thinking about doing listing photos and like videography for real estate. Like, do you think that'd be something that'd be interesting to you? I was like, well, actually, yeah, it would be. I have a listing coming up in Prospect. My photographer that I used for the couple listings I had when I first started was busy. So I was like, how's your schedule? He's like, well, it's wide open.
Mm.
So I was like, well, if you want to give it a shot, here you go. And then he went from that to helping me with my podcast, which I was like, okay, well, how's like every 2 weeks? Like, so I don't like burden you too much. And he's like, yeah. And then I was like, hey, one thing, if this ever becomes something you don't want to do, just tell me. And he's like, yeah, let's see how it goes. Like, I'm going to go to university and I'm trying to do this at the same time. So I'll let you know. And then it come a time where he grew to the point and I helped him. Like, I'm not saying I did it. He did the work. I just, hopefully my little assistance was of help to him. But, my little Instagram profile, I'd put like a little camera emoji and like put his like little Noah James Media. And then we'd meet every so often when he's working on the podcast just to talk about things. And all of a sudden he tells me just before I left to Jamaica, because I was asking him how school was going. And he's like, yeah. He's like, it's kind of a lot. And I'm real busy with my business. And I was like, have you ever thought about just, not to deter you, but I was like, do you ever thought about just not doing university? It's like, what do you need it for? Like, you got a good business head on your shoulders. You deliver your products in a timely fashion. You're very kind of straight up about how it's going to be, how it goes. Your pricing's good. He's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I think it'd be good to have. And I was like, yeah, definitely be great to have. But is it worth putting your business on hold to get it? Because one thing's going to have to suffer. Anyway, before I went to Jamaica, I just ran into him. I was getting a coffee because that's my go-to spot there. And I like to support local when I can, too. And he was sitting there doing some editing. I just sat down and had a chat. He's like, hey, man, so I got something to tell you. I was like, what? He's like, I'm not going back to university. And I go, really? I go, what changed your mind? He goes, well, I was kind of just like getting by. And my parents were like, they actually confronted me. And they're like, why don't you just like drop out? Like, we're not paying for grades we don't want. Which is awesome for him to, have that support. And then he goes, honestly, guys, like, I'm more interested in just growing my business. So if it's cool with you guys, like you say, like, I'm just not going to go back, at least not now. And then I was like, well, with work experience, if you want to do an MBA down the road, like that would be a more value perhaps to you.
Yeah. And it's incredibly expensive anyway to go to university.
Even more so now. I think it's way up.
Yeah.
I think it was like $6,700 or $7,000 a semester.
Wow.
When I went.
Yeah.
Plus, like, that's not lodging, food, books.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
A good friend of mine, he got his, I don't want to screw this up, but he got his bachelor's of, I believe it was Bachelor of Arts. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was a bachelor degree.
Yeah.
And currently he's working in construction, so it was a degree that he's not even using. Another friend of mine, he went to do computer software engineering, something like that, and he's a roofer, and he's very happy being a roofer. But they sell you. It seems like they sell you things that don't really offer you any value after you get that degree. Not to say that it was a waste of time, because I think any education is worth it. I mean, education is great, but it needs to be marketable at the same time.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I would never say that a degree is a waste of time or money or whatever, but it's just a marketability of it.
Yeah, and I think for years, like, they really sold like if you have a university degree, you're guaranteed this level job and this level pay, and if you want to stand out, you need a degree. But now that's wrong. There's so many people going to university versus the trades now. It's so saturated that like a degree is just like graduating high school now.
Yeah.
It's like just like you need it just to get looked at. And if anything, like, again, like I really like, at least in my like core courses, like I never got the whole, like, you go to university for 4 years, whatever amount of time. You could do it in 3, you could do it in 5, whatever. But the standard program's 4 years for a bachelor. And like, you have core courses you need to take, and then they want you to take all this other bullshit stuff. Like, I took like intro to geology and like dinosaurs and like, just stuff that you could get a good mark so you'd pump your GPA. And I just, I actually migrated to psychology and I really enjoyed that. But before I found that
would be really cool.
Yeah, just that, how the mind works. And I've very much been more into like that type of development and learning now too, because it's like I'm reading books about how to be better at dealing with different types of people, how I am in terms of type of personality. But I just found like, hey, just let me, in university, I was just like, why don't you just let me study marketing? Like that's what I was interested in. So for me, like it didn't matter how easy the course was. If I wasn't interested, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care to, so I even didn't do as good in those courses as I could have because it was like no relevance to me.
Yeah. That's called ADHD, my friend.
Yeah, well, yeah, I tried to get that assessed too, but anyway, nobody wanted to say that I was like that as a kid, which is like crazy to me that like I did some tests and stuff. My parents and brother were like, why do you think you have ADHD? And I was like, well, this isn't going to help. But yeah, I just found it was like a money grab, like in that sense. Like, if you only did the core courses, you could do it in 2 years or 3 or whatever. Like it'd be a significant smaller load. But anyway, and it's just kind of one of those things. I think they oversold it. And then everybody's going to university and now nobody's in the trades. And it's like flip-flopped.
Yeah.
Now they're screaming for people to go in trades.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was younger, my parents always kind of drove me to get a trade because you'd always have something to fall back on, is what they would say. But when I was younger, if you had a blue-collar job, you're kind of a loser, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays it's like desperately needed. Kids, get a trade.
Yeah, man. Do it.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm a home inspector now, but I would never say it was a waste of time for me to be in the trades. Just all the stuff I've learned just doing it. Renovations was another big part of my life too. Like I would do bathroom renos, and when you're in a bathroom, you're doing the tile, but you also kind of have to know how to do a little bit of plumbing. You also kind of have to know your way around like electricity,
right?
And it was just the way to go to me. And then like going from that into home inspection, it was kind of a nice like migration. It was a pretty easy to get.
Seamless.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And you guys probably, I say you guys, you probably grew up very similar in terms of like, well, you're a little more remote than I would have been, like up in St. Anthony, but like down the South Shore, same thing. Like in high school, especially, like if you were going to community college, it was like you were lesser.
Yeah.
But if you went to university, they're like, oh, that's good. But man, like, and this is not to flaunt it or whatever, but there's a lot of guys going lobster fishing that make $200,000 or $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
They work 6 months out of the year.
It's a tough job.
Yeah,
and
you're the worst part of it too. The end of November to the end of May. So they're wide open fishing every day that it's safe enough to go. And some people even go when it's not. And that makes problems for the most part. But they'll go wide open till like New Year's. They maybe take a day for Christmas. They might even go Christmas Day if they're not way offshore. And then like there's guys that were looking to go, like they were calling my brother because he's back home. He's a contract worker in geology. And like they were calling him to go Boxing Day. He's like, no, like I go when I want to if I want to. Because he does well enough that unless he's lacking work or there's a big lag time between jobs, like he's not that interested. But we had a unfortunate death in our community where I grew up. Childhood friend's father that used to go camping with us. He was going out fishing. Poor guy. They're sailing out, and I don't even know if they're that far. And all of a sudden, heart attack, and he was dropped dead right there.
Oh, my God.
And that's the guys, I mean, they needed help, and my brother's been helping him. He's been really good about it. He went to school with the daughter, so a year younger than me, and then there was a daughter a year older, and we used to go camping together as a collective little community all in the summer times. So, yeah, there was yeah, there's like all kinds of opportunities. And man, you know, you want to laugh at blue collar work, like guy down home, Russell Spinney Excavation. He was my neighbor's kid, like right next door. Like his father was a lobster fisherman. Both his two other brothers, Steve and Andy, are lobster fishing.
Mm-hmm.
He runs an excavation company. We went over to visit him last time I was down that I had time, and he was showing us his big workshop. He's got all these toys. He's a big collectibles guy, like the old like gas station signs, Coca-Cola, Pepsi.
Oh, cool.
He goes around all over picking this stuff up. It's super cool. But he was saying like he's so busy that if you call him and he doesn't see your name come up, like if it's not saved in his contacts, he's like, I'm not answering.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? He's like, I'm so busy that if I answer, they're going to want me to do it tomorrow. And I'm going to be like, well, how's 3 months from now?
Yeah.
And they're just going to be like, well, that's not good enough. And he'd be like, well, sorry, have a good day.
Yeah.
So now he just doesn't bother.
Yeah. And like a lot of the contractors I know, they're at least like 4, 6, 8 months out.
Right. And then if you really push them to get there earlier, they're going to give you a super inflated friggin' quote.
Yeah.
Because they probably don't want to do it anyway. That's what I've found anyway. If somebody gives you a crazy quote, it's like they don't got time and they don't want to do it unless you want to pay that price.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway. But yeah, no, my mindset's definitely flipped, like, you know, in terms of blue collar work. And I don't know, there's just something cool about putting stuff together.
Mm.
I don't know if it's a man thing or, you know, listen, women do a great job at it too. But man, even the limited knowledge that I amassed from my grampy, so dad's dad, because dad was so busy, he was a lobster fisherman. He was an electrician as well, so he did that in the off season. But he was so busy, he never really had the time to kind of teach us. But Grant retired early from fishing, and dad took over. He had a mini stroke, and Nan was like, no more fishing. Because he didn't know where he was for a bit, and it took him a while to kind of get back with it, but didn't have any problems till the very end. And like our job was to go around and help Grant do the maintenance work around our own house for dad, because they all knew dad was never going to do it, just because he was so busy, not that he couldn't or whatever. So I learned a lot of like, how to plumb stuff up, how to make sure it's square, like the very general basics. Like I don't have the confidence to do, like, I know you built like a new deck and a pool, and I've seen a bunch of your work. It looks really great. But like, I just do like small stuff. Like I put some trim around windows. I built a little patio furniture thing, which was, you might say it sucks. I thought it was great. But it's just like little stuff like that. When you start something and complete it to fruition, that's like, I don't know, it's very fulfilling. And I think if there's one thing that you can take away from education, a degree, or a diploma, at least you can learn, you start something and complete it to fruition. I think that's a good, valuable lesson if there's anything from at least university degrees.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's the narrative is definitely flipped, and we can see for sure the shortages. Like everything's short.
Yeah, and there's to me, there's like a self-reliance aspect to that too. Like something goes on your car, if you have the ability to fix it yourself, well, yeah, you saved yourself some money and some time, but it's also like that's a skill. You know what I mean? And
yeah, 100%.
I built the new deck on my back, on the back of my house. The old deck was falling apart. It started to turn into a death trap, so I had to take care of it.
Right. Yeah, it was time.
But yeah, like to be able to stand back at the end of the day or the end of the week and say, "Wow, like I did that." That's pretty.
Yeah, it feels good.
Big boost in dopamine for me, really.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm sure like the family loves it. Like the wife probably loves it.
She's showing it off to everybody she can. So
yeah, right. There you go. Looks like you probably do good work then. I got a bathroom needs renovated upstairs too.
Absolutely, I'll give you a price.
Yeah. We'll have a peek after. Back into some of your stuff. What's kind of if you were to give if you could give like 2 or 3 of the most common things that pop up in your day-to-day inspections? Is there some stuff that's more common than not, or is it always kind of a different bag of nuts?
You know what? That's kind of what I love about it. Is it's always like a different mix.
Always.
When you look at a trailer, I'm always going to see an issue when I go underneath.
Right.
It seems that way anyway. And like I don't know. It depends on the type of home as well.
Yeah. What would be like a common issue you see under a trailer then? Let's start with
Mangled insulation.
mangled insulation?
Yeah.
Like in the floor or the
the
skirting or
the underbelly it's called. A lot of times I see it, sagging down, or it's clearly not performing as the way it should. Wobbly toilets seem to be a very consistent thing.
Yeah, I see the videos. I like it.
And it doesn't seem to matter what house it is. Like every house has something, right?
Yeah.
My own home, has issues that pop up from time to time.
Yeah. Wasn't that video in your own house?
One of them was.
The wobbly toilet?
A couple of them. Yeah, the wobbly toilet for sure.
I laughed so hard at that video, man. It's great.
Check me out on TikTok.
Right.
But really depends on the house. When you're in downtown Halifax, there's a lot of century homes. The foundation is going to be an issue for the most part.
Can you specify, like, for people that don't know, like a century home?
Sorry, yes. A century home is a home that is generally at or around 100 years old.
Okay. That's what I assumed, but I didn't want to.
We have a lot of those, especially downtown Halifax.
Yeah, a lot of Victorians. They
were built using stones,
right,
and concrete and mortar and stuff. And there's always construction going on downtown. There's always blasting going on, and those homes are settling over time.
And do you think that accelerates some of that?
Absolutely. And if you're buying a home in downtown Halifax, don't be scared. Absolutely, don't be scared of any home that you're looking into. But definitely, leaky foundations is a big subject for those homes. By stark contrast, if you look at a home that was built in the last 5 years, maybe the construction practices were not, up to good quality standards, let's say.
Yeah.
Like I looked at a home and it didn't have any vent for the, it didn't have any bathroom vent. It was just going right into the soffit.
Okay.
And I don't know how that got missed on, the last, and, for the city inspection. But it did, and stuff like that happens. And not to say that contractors out there are lazy, but, a lot of contractors, they kind of stress, timelines, just to get the houses out, because as you know, we're looking at a housing shortage right now.
Right.
And, they're just trying to whip up these houses as fast as possible. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, everybody makes mistakes. We're all human, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's the kind of the differentiation between like what has been a mistake because they're getting stressed so tight for timelines, and what's like them just really cutting corners because they want to get to the next paycheck.
And at some point during COVID, ABS pipe was actually really difficult to find. So plumbers were having to go to PVC, and then it created a material shortage, for lack of better words.
So for the folks that aren't as well versed, like what is the difference between like an ABS and a PVC pipe?
The material it's made of, but other than that, there's really no difference. The glue you use is slightly different. You can't use ABS glue on PVC. It just will not. It just won't bond the same way. But really, it's and PVC, I believe, is a little bit more expensive than ABS.
Okay.
ABS is black. Typically, that's what you'd see in a home. And PVC is generally white or sometimes green.
Right. That was my next question, just to clarify for them, because like, I don't think you know this. Well, you knew I told you about my Airbnb that I'd done.
Yep.
So the door to the left of the one you come into, like that used to be my garage.
Yep.
So anyway, we had to, and then we gutted this whole side too, because this was just a little den.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the wall probably was like where that bookshelf was before, so it was quite a bit smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So when we decided to take that on, we're like, well, why don't we make the downstairs on our own side better? So we took a little bit away from the rec room, added here, so we got a full 3-bedroom now.
Mm-hmm.
And then that used to be just a little half bathroom with like a toilet, sink in the washer dryer. Now it's got a shower, a couple storage shelves. But yeah, we had to redo all the plumbing. and it's all ABS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you really, quality-wise, there's no difference.
It's a little more flexible and malleable, is it not? Like it's more like hoses-ish?
Yes. Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
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 Forgive my lack of knowledge, but I
no.
just know some of the connector stuff coming out of the hot water tank and some of the stuff they had to run through like the walls to get to like the kitchenette and all that in there.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be a little bit more flexible anyway.
But, that's actually PEX.
Oh, that's
yeah.
PEX?
So PEX is what's like under pressure.
Okay.
ABS and PVC, that's not under pressure. So that would be like your drains.
Oh, okay.
And stuff
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even then, like there's nothing wrong with using PEX. A lot of the times, like there are products out there that were used in the past, getting, while we while we got better at using materials, we've discovered along the way some issues.
Right.
So Kitech would be one.
Well, I was just going to ask, let's get into that.
And that would be orange pipe. If you see an orange, flexible, plastic-looking pipe in your basement, that's Kitech.
What's the major
that's
issues with
that's a no-no now. Basically, it would corrode from the inside out.
Oh,
and so you wouldn't really know that you'd have a problem until you suddenly knew that you had a problem.
Right.
And
immediately.
And the same deal with, it's called polybutylene piping, or
What color is that?
Poly B for short. It's gray, and you could usually identify it by seeing PB2110 written on it. If it has PEX written on it, or IPEX, PEX, that's generally fine. That's great. But Kitech is orange, Poly B is gray, and those are the two that you kind of have to keep an eye on.
Now, I just want to recall on my own memory here, and I apologize to Michael if I get it wrong, but I seen Ace Tech put a video out where there was some orange piping, but he was like, this isn't Kitech, because apparently if it's got give, it's...
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, maybe that's something you look into, let me know. But he was like, Kitech? Maybe. Then he did this, like, pulled on it, and it kind of, I guess if it goes right back, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Maybe if it doesn't go right back, it's Kitech. But anyway, it was orange, and he claims it was not Kitech. And I think one of the main proponents of his diagnosis was like, it'll usually say it on the...
Yes, it does absolutely normally say it. Yeah, and when it's unmarked, it's, that much more difficult to find out if it is or not.
Yeah.
I don't want to bash anybody at all. I love Michael.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic home inspector too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if it doesn't say, then I'll flag it as, have a plumber evaluate it.
Right. Get some more info.
Yeah.
He would you'll have to look the video up, and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
He seemed very confident in his assessment, and I mean, he's a very confident guy. And generally, if he feels strongly about something on a home inspection, I definitely go with him, because I mean, what the hell do I know? I'm just the realtor. I know a couple things. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah, and everybody's got an opinion, especially online.
Yeah.
And
you can find whatever you want on there. But
oh, absolutely. Yeah. All kinds of
Earth's flats, round,
donut shaped.
Yeah, didn't go to the moon.
Yeah.
Anything. No, that's cool. So a little bit of education there. So yeah, trailers, Victorian style homes. Anything else you think that's like a major like?
I mean, every home is kind of has its own unique flavor.
It's like a hand of bits and bites. So
that's right.
Everyone's always different. I love bits and bites.
Yeah. I mean, generally roofs are normally all the same.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how long it's been there.
Yeah, and the trees around it.
Yeah. Do you find that's a big thing that deteriorates roofs at a more rapid rate if you have some greenery around and the foliage is falling on the roof and it's
absolutely
molding and you're getting that mossy crap on there?
Yeah. So my general philosophy, and this goes to mold as well, but life wants to happen.
Right.
And
that is true.
And so
it will happen.
If you take a piece of bread, leave it on your counter, eventually it will grow life on it.
It will.
So the leaves fall off the tree, land on your roof. Sometimes the wind blows it off, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
The leaves turn into earth, eventually.
Of course.
And the nutrients, it kind of feeds algae.
Right.
Algae is also a plant. And
Is alive.
cool fact, plants have roots. And,
Right.
and
Imagine where they go.
and yeah, they go right into they dig themselves right down into your shingles. I might even have a TikTok on this. But yeah, the roots will develop into the shingles, and even if you get rid of them at that point, now you've got little holes in your shingles.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you got water coming in.
Yeah.
Have you ever found roots coming into the attic? Or not that bad?
I have, but not from algae. From you'll see people, they might have vines growing up their chimney.
Yeah, one of my places, you weren't available for that one, but Michael was. I sold a place down on Tucker Lake in Beaverbank.
Mm-hmm.
All vines, all up the side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Michael's first thing was like, you got to get rid of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Insurance hates it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all good. So yeah, life wants to happen. This goes to mold too. If you have a moist basement, for example,
Yeah.
Mold is a fungus, which is not quite a plant, not quite an animal. It's crazy crap, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'll release spores. It can move through walls. It's actually quite a problem in how. I should say that as well. Mold is also kind of a problem in Halifax because we're so close to the water
Always condensation,
and
moisture.
exactly, and we have nice warm summers.
And they're humid.
They're very humid, and mold really only needs 60% moisture content to grow.
Oh.
And anything under that, it could go dormant. Mold can stay dormant for years, and when it's activated, when it has moisture that can feed off of,
Right.
it reactivates and it can very quickly take over.
Yes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, mold is also ubiquitous. It's around us all the time, and really, there's no getting rid of it, but there's a way you can prevent it.
Yeah, mitigate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Good tips. Good tips. So I don't know. Maybe you don't want to say, but I was just thinking like a good question would be, what's like, obviously can't name the property, but like what would have been one of the most challenging inspections you've had to endure, and like what would have been like some of the major issues?
Well, there's this home, and I'm not going to say where it was, obviously, but it was out in the boonies,
Yeah.
very rural area.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if you could find an actual contractor out that way. And so most people, they do their own home improvement.
DIY stuff. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I love DIY.
Yeah.
But there's correct ways and incorrect ways to do something. And this one place I walked into, like, you needed every single trade immediately, right from the roof that was caving in and falling apart, right down to the foundation that was crumbling away. And yeah, it was a disaster of a home inspection, honestly. I felt bad for the guy who hired me. I actually, gave him a discount because I didn't even finish the inspection. It was that bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they didn't buy it.
No, absolutely not. And I would never say you should or should not buy a home.
But that was a
That's completely up to you. And especially with the housing crisis we have, I have no room to say if a home is good or bad.
Yeah, it's
but
all individual, I guess. What you're
it's all what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And if this guy was like a real estate investor, maybe it would be worth his while.
Yeah, because you might have the connections to get it done and get some people in there.
Yeah, yeah. But for the average person, this would not have been a suitable home.
Yeah, that's a shame. So really kind of SOS all the way through, right, from top to bottom.
Yeah, every single trade immediately. Yeah.
Like now, yesterday.
Yeah.
The years before.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you find like with the DIY stuff, like obviously there's super skilled people that'll just dig in and they'll do it exactly to the letter and they'll do a great job, and sometimes you won't even be able to tell that it wasn't like professional work. It's just to that quality. But like I found in my experience, those people are few and far between. And I think most of the DIY work you see, they start it with good intentions, and then it's like, fuck it, it's good enough.
Yeah.
And they just live with it like that because they don't want to rip it apart,
Mm-hmm.
pay the extra materials that they've wasted, and then pay somebody else to do it, eh?
Yeah. And really, as long as it's not a safety concern,
Right.
then it's just cosmetics anyway,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And then it's like, it's your house or their house or whatever. So it's like you're the one that's got to deal and live and see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like me, that's why I can't do any of my own work, or very like, unless I'm confident I can complete it. Because if something's wrong or not level, I'll see it, and I'll never unsee it.
Yeah.
So I can't, like, if I don't have the confidence or the know-how, like, I'm not going to pretend, because I'll waste more materials than it's worth. And by the end of it, I'm probably better off to hire somebody for the amount of time and expense I'm going to cause and stress.
Yeah.
I'll cause myself, right?
Yeah. And I'm the exact same way. When me and my wife moved into our first home, I started pointing out all the tiny things here and there, like, oh, that trim doesn't quite line up over there. The grout line's kind of thick over there. And after a while, my wife was like, "Hey, you got to shut up."
Because you can see it all.
Because now that she knew it was there,
Yeah,
it did bother her.
of course.
But me, like, I don't know, I can't turn it off. Like, just OCD, like crazy.
Well,
I see
it's
it.
part of you too, like it's your jam.
Yeah, yeah.
So, another question. So, what advice would you give to like somebody looking into getting into the trade or the industry of home inspections? Like, what would be some starting points? Maybe some like places you maybe went wrong. Maybe you didn't go do anything wrong, but like, are there places you could have looked at or looked into that would have kind of helped this process? Or
No, I definitely did a lot of things wrong. In my experience, getting into the trades. The biggest thing for anybody looking to get into the trades is find an employer that actually does good work.
yeah,
And I know that as a newbie, it's going to be very hard to distinguish good work and bad work. But if you get a weird vibe from someone where they're trying to, hide something that maybe they didn't do, 100% correct, if you're getting that vibe, then, maybe it's time to look elsewhere.
yeah,
Because the student can only get as good as the master.
100%.
And if the person trying to teach you how to do things is, kind of a hack, for lack of better words, then you will pick up those habits eventually.
Yeah, man, I seen a good reel from somebody, and it was like, never take advice from somebody that does less than you,
Yeah, exactly.
or isn't like a professional in said thing, or like has a ton of experience. It's like, find a lot of times people try and tell us things like, don't do this or don't do that, or be careful doing that, and they have they're just blowing smoke because they have no idea. So it's like, oftentimes you got to quell down that noise and like follow your gut. So if buddy's giving you a bad vibe, and from the bit of schooling you have, that you have some sense of knowledge of like, that's maybe not 100%, then you're probably right. But like you say, starting out, it's hard because you want to get the opportunity, you want to get the experience, you want to get money. And you got to weed through all that other crap.
And definitely when I started, I took whatever I can get.
As we all did, right?
Yeah, and it was a different world back when I started, doing carpentry. Like, I had a boss that would throw concrete down into a hole, pour some water in it, and mix it up in the hole, and call that good. And like, to me now I know that you got to have it all mixed in properly, right? Like
proper portions of water in.
Yeah. I mean, I've done it all the time where like you mix a bag of concrete in a wheelbarrow, for example, and you think it's good, but then you take a good dig and it's still dry at the very bottom.
Right, because you didn't mix it good.
Yeah. So there's just tiny things like that. If you're working for a guy and he doesn't think like a raindrop when you're, for example, doing siding or doing a bit of roof, if he doesn't think like a raindrop, then it just water will find a way in.
Yeah. And what do you mean think like a raindrop?
Let's say you're throwing in a window. You know,
Oh,
technically you don't have to put on, technically by the code, you don't have to put silicone on around your window. But me living in Nova Scotia, I know that the rain sometimes comes in sideways. So
Yeah, you're right, it does.
it's very beneficial to, throw a bead of silicone and then tape on top of that, for example. And then you do your flashing and, you tidy it all up.
So there's some extra stuff you can do to be a little bit above and beyond that'll make sure things don't happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Those are good people to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, wrap it up here. I got one last question. What do you find really motivates you to get up in the morning and do what you do? Like,
You know what? I feel kind of guilty. I feel like I have like the best job in the world
that's a great feeling to have.
because I get to wake up and help someone on their home ownership journey, and like that's a deeply fulfilling thing. I'm sure you
100%.
feel as well.
Yeah.
And just seeing the appreciation in the people's eyes at the end of the inspection, like, wow, I never even considered da 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 da.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And you're there to provide the know.
Yeah, and it gives me a really fulfilling feeling, and I don't know, I just like helping people. Turns out,
You know what? Helping people's great. And I think it's been like a lot of times in my 20s, I think I was often looking of like every time I do something, I very much like selfishly be like, well, what's in it for me?
as you do,
Right?
in your 20s.
Yeah. And now it's like, well, what can I do for other people now? And it's been a very big, like, especially in the more recent years and starting this and just getting older and kind of evaluating relationships and how things kind of play out. It's very fulfilling to help somebody in need and or give yourself to a cause or whatever. And that's really what I find drives me as well. So, helping people is definitely a big thing. And we both do roles that are very fulfilling in the sense that we're helping people get probably the most expensive thing they're ever going to buy. And you do the work to make sure that it's sound and that and if it's not 100%, they know all the ins and outs of what they have to do to get it there. And, with your detailed reporting, it's really kind of hits all the nails on the head there. So that's awesome, man. And I think we'll wrap it up there. So thanks again so much for kicking off the first episode of 2024 with me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know we talked about it a little bit in 2023, but I was really eager to get you here. So we'll let you get back about your day and inspect some more homes. And don't forget, guys, check your nest. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, brother.